All right, everybody. Well, we're live with another episode of Simply Finance with Shane White. I am pumped today to have Bridget Connelly on the podcast, the co-founder and CEO of Luna Bay Booch Company. So, Bridget, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate taking the time. Do you mind giving everyone just a little background of yourself? And then I think it'd be cool to give you a little like elevator pitch on just like what the brand is.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Luna Bay Hard Kombucha is our company, and we're founded in Chicago, Illinois. And it's a hard kombucha, it's 6% alcohol, and it's gluten free, vegan, low sugar. We started in Chicago, we started brewing in Chicago, and now we've expanded within the last year into 11 states, and we'll be adding more states this year. And we have 8 core flavors now.
Oh, awesome. Okay. And what I always like to kind of start it off like, what was the inspiration behind getting into this? Like, was this something
Yeah.
you grew up like liking kombucha? Where's like the
Yeah.
beginning of this whole story?
Grew up like drinking. No, I'm
Yeah, there
kidding.
you go. Yeah.
Yeah. No. So, I've always been like kind of worked in the health and wellness space throughout my life. And I worked with Lululemon for quite a long
Oh,
time,
okay.
and both in Chicago and then in California and then in Australia. When
Oh,
I was
wow.
in Australia, I really started seeing like the market for health conscious drinks, and people also like to have fun. When I moved back from there a couple of years ago and moved to San Diego, I saw kind of the market for hard kombucha take off. And I just thought about how in Chicago this would do really well. I think sometimes Chicago gets a kind of stereotype of it's just like deep dish pizza, and
Yeah.
and that's all people do there is just like eat and drink. And it's I think people don't really know of how health conscious it is. And the 606 and running on the lakefront, and especially with working with Lululemon for so long, I knew what a great health community there was there. So I knew that I wanted to take back this concept that was booming in California back to Chicago. So that's kind of what inspired me. And then, we launched with another woman, Claire Ridge, who is in Chicago as well. And it kind of just took off from there.
Got it. Okay. So you were living in California, saw basically a direction that this was going. And then what did you actually like move back to Chicago to get this started, or how did
You
that
would
all
have
work?
thought I was so set on living by the water and like the sunshine, but so I flew back like every couple weeks. I would say every
Okay.
2 weeks for the first year. Luckily, my parents lived there, so and my brothers, they would take me. My great friends, I probably slept in 1,000 beds that year,
Oh,
but
that's funny. Yeah.
yeah. So, but yeah, no, that's why. And I just saw the niche for it, and I saw how quickly it was taking off out in California, and there was no one really doing it outside of Southern California. So
Oh, okay.
being the first to market in Chicago and kind of like creating our own niche for the space, that's kind of how that all came to be.
Got it. And then so I guess like, you have the concept. What we
Mhm.
always try to break down on here is like that 0 to 1. So obviously a
Yeah.
lot had to have happened between
Yeah.
you realizing that no one's doing it in Chicago to actually having a physical product in Chicago.
Yeah.
Could you maybe walk us through just like, do you remember the like first conversation either with your co-founder or with like friends and family where you were like, hey, is this a good idea? Like, do you remember some of
Yeah.
those beginning conversations where you were kind of like figuring it out whether the concept was worth
Mhm.
going for?
Yeah, definitely. I think, for me, I've always worn a million hats. Like I'm a curious person, and I'm like, oh, I'm starting a blog. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And so when I remember started talking about it, so many people are just like, that's cool, Bridget, add it to like your projects, and it's like,
Okay. Yeah.
you do that for so long and and I think I just, I have thick skin. I have 3 brothers. So I didn't let anyone's like, opinion of like, cool, like go back to your day job, type
Got it.
thing, get in the
Yeah.
way. But I just felt it in my soul. Like I felt like things were aligning, and I designed a can with a former colleague, and we put together a pitch presentation for a couple big key chain accounts just to
Oh.
like show them what we could do, even though we didn't even have a product yet. We just
Oh,
had
so
like
you
the
went
can.
to retailers before even having a physical product?
Yeah, because we wanted to like test and see like if it would be something people would be interested in. And we
Oh,
got
wow.
some emails back from some key chains being like, we love this, we love the can, we love the design. how do we order it? Then I was like, okay, we're on to something. Like now we got to figure out how to do it. So we spent about 9 months, myself, Claire, a sour beer brewer, microbiologist, a couple other consultants for about 9 months working on the recipe and development. And, my background is in branding and marketing. So I had no concept of making an alcohol, but, I think if there's one thing I'm good at is like connecting people and finding people. And I just was relentless in finding the right people to help bring the product to life.
Got it. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. So I got to back up because that's kind of interesting. So you pitch retailers, get good feedback. Did you end up getting product to them quickly?
No.
No.
So it was, Claire and I were working on the product for a long time in her kitchen. So we would really just like go back and forth on flavor development. We wanted to change a lot of hard kombuchas out there had black tea and green tea. So we knew we wanted to do a different tea. We wanted to do yerba mate tea. So we did a yerba mate tea and we were just brewing it in the beginning in her kitchen, playing around with flavors, yeast, things like that. And so we had like these little mini bottles that we would send around. But if we're being totally honest, when we look back on it, we're like, we don't even know if that had alcohol in it in the beginning. We really didn't know what we were doing. We just were like, it tastes good. I think it has alcohol, but, but the can was the main thing. And I would just stalk LinkedIn and try to find any email I could find and pitch it to whoever. And then as we got little bites, we could then go back and as we raise money of like, we already have all these chains ready to go to order it. It's a matter of time of creating it.
Got it. Okay. Oh, that's pretty wild though. I mean, to be honest, I would assume most people that listen to this that haven't made something, most people would think the opposite of like, let me spend all this time trying to develop something and then hopefully going to pitch it and make sure it sells. Right. I mean, it's kind of you kind of reverse engineered it. Yeah,
no, we did. And I think with anything with my background in like branding and marketing was like, a good product obviously is a huge part of it, the quality and, it's got to be there, but the brand is a huge part of it. And so how is that going to sit on the shelves? There's 1,000 hard seltzers. There's craft beer, there's rosé, there's like, how is Luna Bay going to be different? And so for me, I really wanted to nail down that and then pique the interest. And then once I had that, I was like, okay, now we can spend this time and money doing all this R&D because R&D on it, wasn't a full-time job, like all day, every day, fermentations. It's a wild live culture. So the science behind it and the amount of time we had to work with these scientists and microbiologists, paying them and understanding how to really make this high quality product in cans and was a lot. So we needed to make sure we dialed in like the interest for it first before we went really like head deep into the product development.
Yeah. And that totally makes sense. So, I mean, you're flying back and forth to Chicago, you have a concept, but you're pitching it, you don't have a physical product. When did you finally were you at this point, were you still working full time for someone else? And then when did you jump ship? How did you make that decision?
Yeah. So I worked on like the designs and the cans and the pitch decks and the marketing materials, like talk it about fake it till you make it. The beginning of our videos, like we were creating content for, we were literally, it felt like that, like one thing, like the Fire Festival, like we were literally creating a demand for something we don't even have.
It's a great analogy.
So the beginning videos of like, if you look back to any of our stuff, we were like putting like juice in it or like regular, like all of those.
Oh yeah, I've seen those.
It was like, that's not Luna Bay. Like we didn't even have anything yet. So even some images on the website, but we really built up marketing and branding for it. And then I left my job probably 6 months in because it was so, full time of the R&D, the pitching, investors, talking to chains, distributors. For a long time, we were trying to figure out if we were going to do our own brewing, like in our own brewery. So looking at real estate, seeing what made sense. But living in California was such a key component of it because I could see the trends that happened out here. And when I moved here in 2010, I watched how the craft beer, world blew up. And then when I moved back in 2018, a lot of those breweries were shutting down and a lot of people were contract brewing out of them. And the craft beer industry was, declining in a lot of ways, why seltzers and things were taking off. So we were looking for more of like a contract space in Illinois as we kind of saw the trends of some of those breweries, contracting out since they weren't making as much beer anymore.
Sure. Okay. So, that's interesting.
So that took really, I mean, all day, every day of my life in 2019. And that's in the beginning of 2019 is really when I went full time.
Got it. Okay. And at this
Mhm.
point, so you guys start making product, I'm assuming at that point, and then how did you guys at the very beginning? I mean, did you guys try to self-fund it? Did you try to raise capital immediately? Like,
Mhm.
how did you guys think through? Always love asking
Yeah.
founders on here, like the bootstrap versus raising money and how you guys thought through that stuff too.
Yeah. So, I mean, you never can have enough, I suppose, in the beginning. There's always things that come up. But I mean, all of that's why I think, I could do this full time in the beginning. And because I wore so many different hats from like marketing to finance to raising money. But my dad is an investor. And so
Oh,
he
wow.
helped kind of connect me to different angels in his network. And then through that, in Chicago is such a great community of
Yeah.
people. And everyone's kind of connected in word of mouth with things. So we had a great concept. I built out a business plan and a deck and kind of in what the long-term vision would be. And at the same time, as we were trying to find our own brewery, Pilot Project Brewery, which is like an incubator brewery in Chicago, was
Yeah. Okay.
launching. Yeah. And so that is kind of how we got connected with them. And then we figured out how much we needed to raise to get going to brew, just to start with them.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Got it.
yeah. And it was originally supposed to be around like April. So I left my job in January and then like it was supposed to be an April timing for launch. And, Chicago licensing and all of that kind of
Sure.
stuff kind of pushed back into the summer. So,
Okay.
but there was plenty to do from work to sales to distributor conversations before that. So,
Right. Okay.
yeah.
Got
Yeah.
it. Wow. That's pretty sweet. I mean, it's always amazing to me just the amount of people who are intertwined in Chicago. Like I'm from
Totally.
Indiana, but moving here and being a part of RX, it's amazing. You realize how small the food industry is in Chicago. Like
Yeah.
everyone
It's
somehow
crazy.
kind of knows each other if you get involved.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And like are so willing to help out and
Yes.
connect you. Like maybe I'm not the right investor, but like this person could be, or like I know that person. So
I know I
yeah,
always tell people it's been funny getting to know so many founders that it seems like a lot of industries it's not that way. The food and
yeah.
beverage industry seems like everyone's willing to help each other and realizes that more than one brand can win, which is I think is pretty cool.
Oh, totally. Yeah. It was, and they were helpful even in figuring out how much we needed to raise in the beginning too. Just, once we figured out we were going to pilot project, what that business model looked like we realized what
Yeah.
investors were good part to be a part of it, and then how much we needed to raise from there.
And did you think raising capital at the beginning was that something you guys wanted to do to get like expertise into the fold for Luna Bay, or was it purely just like a cash thing and like we were like it's going to be way too expensive to try to like fund it ourselves? It's always
So
interesting to know because I think beverages is something that most people don't know like how expensive it can be.
Oh yeah. I mean, there was no way. I mean, there was like no way we could have done it on our own without raising money because
Yeah.
yeah, I'll say like it's not like, we can just do packaging at home or anything like that. I mean, between the TTB licensing alone, cans, I mean, cans are like 100 grand for just like one PO for a
Yeah.
month's worth
Right.
of stuff. Like, so I mean, it's wild how expensive like manufacturing, especially with cans and shipping and cold shipping. Another thing is our product obviously needs to be cold. So shipping product places is even more expensive for that.
Sure.
And like something that Claire and I really aligned on in the beginning was, we had tested so many different hard kombuchas out there. And, for us, we've seen, and Claire worked in like, agriculture. She has been working in, farmers markets forever. And she's like, it's not always necessarily about organic, but non-GMO is like extremely important.
Oh,
Sometimes you can get much better produce and things like that with non-GMO, but it's more expensive. So
huh.
for
Okay.
us, we were like, this is a non-negotiable, and like the quality of our product is making sure it's non-GMO, it's vegan, it's low sugar. We're using real ingredients and not powders. A lot of people use powders and things like that. So, that pricing from the beginning, we knew what we were going to make was going to be very expensive.
Yeah, that makes. I was actually was one of my questions because I mean obviously Whole Foods is expensive anyway, but when I went and picked some up, I guess I had. It's funny, and maybe it's just because I've spent so much time now in the protein bar aisle
Yeah.
and like nut butters and the things that we sell, and you start to realize that like a lot of the stuff growing up you bought that was cheaper, like how much shit was in it, and
Yeah.
then now I understand that with like protein bars or with nut butters. But then going to the alcohol section, I feel like that's one that I've just like had never thought of that
Yeah.
like. you buy a case of like Coors Light or whatever, and it's
Right.
12, $15 for 12 cans. And then I was looking at like, Luna Bay and some of these other brands. You're like, oh, it's got to be the same thing. Like the ingredient makeup is just, it's full of cheap shit and the cheap
Yeah.
beer. And this is made up of like things that are better for you. So that was like a thing for me I had never thought of until I looked at you guys' stuff on the shelf.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I think that's something that like we really like the education around hard kombucha. It was like the most important part in the beginning. And we were so lucky in the beginning that we could do samplings all the time and we could tell people about it because, yeah, if you walk in and you see a hard seltzer that is $11 for, 12, 16 cans, and then you see ours for 4 at like $15, it's like, why would I? But then if you understand like the better for you aspect, and we can't necessarily say like, oh, it's an alcohol, so you can't say this is healthy for you, but it is, probiotic. It is a live culture. It is, vegan, non-GMO, and there's like real ingredients, and we can speak to every single ingredient in that can, where a lot of other, companies, there isn't regulations and there's things that you can put in it. So to make it stable. So it's important. And I think it's an important aspect of the education around purchasing at a higher price point.
Yeah, I bet. And is it hard just in general? Like, I feel like education, I don't know much about this, but is like trying to educate consumers in the alcohol industry, is that even more difficult? Like, I'm sure there's things you can't
Yeah,
say, or there's platforms you maybe can't
totally.
even use.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of legalities around what we can promote, and like even like from an adventure post and not having an alcohol in it, because you can't like promote doing something outdoors active and
Right.
having that and everything like that. And then, we were just, it's just amazing what we've had to kind of overcome with when we launched in new markets last spring. It was basically when COVID was like really at its height, and
Right.
to launch in new markets. And we really have never been able to do samplings or, with distributors, you can do ride along. So you can like go with the distributor to accounts and check in, but all of those things we're not allowed to do. So even like educating the distributors and the reps and then the accounts, how to sell it. If you walk into a Lazy Acres here, we can't go in anymore. Like,
Right.
how is that buyer going to know to be like, oh, we love Luna Bay. We love this team, so
Yeah.
we've had to get very creative with our ways of education.
I was gonna say, what are some of the ways you guys have combated? I figured COVID was
Yeah.
probably one of the worst for you guys because a lot of brands, I mean, like us, we were able to flex e-commerce when stores slowed down and sampling stopped. For brands like you can't really sell. You can't sell like on Amazon. So
Yeah.
what have been some of the things you guys have done to combat that?
Yeah, well, it is interesting because the laws are so different. That's another thing. The laws are so different in every single state around alcohol
Right.
and like direct to consumer. Luckily, a lot of these, we've really been able to partner with some of these direct to consumer type businesses. So we've jumped on with like Whole Foods, who got, bought out by Amazon. So you can actually, if you have a Whole Foods near you in one of the markets we're in, you can buy Luna Bay on Amazon through that.
Nice.
And then Drizzly has been an amazing customer of ours. And then we also just signed on with GoPuff, which is a
Love
great,
it. Yep.
yeah, GoPuff is really growing. And so other platforms that you can kind of jump in with direct to consumer is great for us. But then also just really like our digital strategy of like, giving assets to Lazy Acres, Whole Foods, Bristol Farms, like of who we are. And these are, Lazy Acres just did a big promotion around us in January about Health and Wellness Week. And we were the pick of the week. And
Oh,
so
nice.
we kind of like, yeah, we're like targeted ads in certain areas. So it's been getting super creative digitally with our accounts, making sure they have assets, making sure distributors do. And then like shelf talkers and fridge clings and random POS that like, I didn't even know what that was. POS being like point of sale.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it is something that's like not known until you're into it, right?
Oh my gosh, now you can't walk into a place without it. It's like I walk into a liquor store, I'm like, oh, that guy has a poster there, and like they have a thing on the ground. Like we could put, a sticker on the ground, like Booch this way, or so you kind of just brand everywhere you go. So people start seeing it. And then you're like, it's like the Starbucks sign. You're like, oh yeah, I think I saw that somewhere.
Right.
You know?
Exactly. It's like that brand recognition just from seeing little things.
Yeah, totally. So
Got
yeah,
it.
we've come up with like local stickers, female founded, brewed with yerba mate, keep this cold, like
All
anything
the
we can
things
do.
you can. Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
love that. That's great. Have you guys have you guys seen an uptick at all since COVID started? I mean, I feel like that was the one thing I wanted to ask you too, is a lot of the brands that either like, there seems like there's one of two camps. One is like people have pivoted to e-commerce and seen like extensive growth.
Yeah.
Some brands like fell behind and didn't jump on the e-com thing quick enough and
Yeah.
saw a dip. But then I was thinking about it and I was like, well, you guys are in the alcohol industry, which saw a tremendous year with everyone being stuck at home. Was that actually maybe, not that COVID's good at all by any means,
Yeah.
but was that a benefit for you guys potentially?
Yeah, I mean, we have such a great group of advisors that are part of our team, and when COVID hit, we all kind of just pivoted very quickly. We had a bigger team in the beginning, and we kind of
Okay.
scaled back on our team, and because a lot of our team was doing samplings and was out at events and
Right.
things like that, so we changed our sales strategy, which we really throughout COVID only had like 5 full-time people on our team, and that's finance, sales, marketing, CEO, production, like spread thin to say the
Yeah.
least. But
Right.
we got so creative with how to sell over the phone because people couldn't go into stores. We couldn't fly to places. So how to build relationships over that, how to over email, things like that. But scaling back on the team was like step one, and just to maintain that. And then step two is like getting into new markets, and kombucha sales were going up. People are very probiotic and gut health is obviously a very huge part of just like wellness and taking care of yourself. And
Right.
then alcohol sales have been going up. So our off-premise business, luckily and fortunately, like we've done very well in that space in retail, liquor stores and chains. Obviously on-premise has been taking a hit, which is, restaurants and bars, and something that, my heart goes out to all of those bars and restaurants that are just trying to get by. But, I have seen in the last, few weeks, even in California, things are starting to open up again, in Wisconsin, and Happy Campers, one of our great accounts in
Oh, nice.
Denver.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's things picking up again, but on premise definitely was basically obsolete last year. And so,
Got it. Yeah,
yeah, I
Wisconsin
mean,
is like the Wild West. Every time I tell
yeah.
everyone when I go up there during COVID, you would think COVID's not really a thing.
Yeah, no, it's been wild. And it's even by county, it's so different.
Yeah.
Like, it's like Walworth County is doing really well, but then Madison has been like shut down completely. And Madison is like such a great area for us. I went to school there, and
Sure.
great bars and restaurants. And so we're looking into doing more like college, type activations, hopefully in the upcoming, when we can go to football games and things like that.
Right. Yeah, I know. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Are you guys like how does distribution work as far as like, I mean, you said you're in a lot of states.
Mhm.
I was looking today on your website. It seems like even like around me here, like you guys are in tons of places that I wouldn't even know
Yeah.
you're in. Is that for, I mean, most people that have listened to any of the founder series I've had, obviously food's very different. For alcohol, do you have to like, do you get to partner with like a distributor, right? There has to be like a third party involved that
Yeah.
it actually like handles the distribution. Is that correct? Or like, how do you guys
Yeah.
continue to grow distribution like a food brand would, for example?
Yeah, it's so interesting. And, I feel like since starting Luna Bay, it's like the most extreme business school you could ever like
Yeah, I bet.
every day you're like, what is this new thing I have to learn? And even distribution is so different by state. You're there's like really small craft distribution. There's like the big guys like Miller Coors and things like that. And then to throw another curveball into it is having a cold trucks. So obviously our product needs to be, refrigerated, and cold trucks wasn't really a norm because a lot of alcohol is shelf stable, and ours is not. So not only finding the right distributor partner that can reach a lot of these chains, but that also has cold trucks and cold warehouses
Oh,
has
right.
been a whole different thing to, manage. But we've really come so far. We have a guy in our team that came from Ballast Point, and he's
Nice.
wonderful. He's an advisor. Yeah. And he's really helped us understand these distributor relationships, what that looks like. But so every state, you have a different distributor, you have different contracts, different terms, all of that. And then it's really on us to build the relationships with all of our accounts. So we're out there, finding, we're in all the Binnies now,
Oh,
all the,
nice.
Fresh
That's up.
Times.
It's a big one.
Yeah, Garfield's, Binny's was a huge win. They've been a great partner for us. But we find the accounts, and we really are the ones landing the deals, and then the distributors work with us to help execute that, making sure there's no out of stocks, replenishing, merchandising, things like that. But you have to
Yeah.
manage different ones in every single state and different, protocols.
Right. Okay. That's awesome. I didn't know that's how that worked.
Yeah.
And then obviously, like I mentioned in the beginning, and you've mentioned cans is like the main, I would say, what I see you guys market the most. Do you guys sell like in other forms too? Do you have like kegs or like
Mhm.
anything at restaurants as well? Or is it just cans?
Yeah, so good question. We came out in the beginning with 12-ounce 4 packs for 3 flavors. So it's Palo Santo blueberry, which was like a smoky wood, ginger lemon, which is very approachable for anyone, and then hibiscus lavender, which is
Hmm.
more of like a rosé. So we came out with 12-ounce 4 packs, and then we also were on draft at Pilot Project because that's where we kind of
Right.
launched and started. And then we were just sticking with that just to get going. And then when we launched in California, we realized 16-ounce singles was such a huge opportunity.
Mm.
The hard kombucha market here is very saturated. There's tons of brands here. So having a 16-ounce single option, you can grab it and go. You can try one at a time before you commit to the 4 pack. So we rolled out 16-ounce singles in the spring of last year
Okay.
in California. And then we've launched that now to all of our markets. Then we came out with seasonal flavors. So we've come out with like bourbon apple,
Oh,
huckleberry
nice.
basil, yeah, and orange persimmon. And you'll see more of those every quarter of just a new seasonal. And then Luna Bay Light, obviously, which is our new
Yes.
zero sugar one, which is exciting. And then we have come out with half barrel kegs and
Oh,
six
okay.
too. So sixtels are the smaller kegs, half barrels are the bigger kegs, but it's been the Wild West with on premise, like things open and they shut down all of our markets. So
Sure.
um, I think somewhere like California, if you go into a bar, a restaurant, you'll see 4 to 5 tap handles of hard kombucha, different brands. It's such a huge category here. Whereas in other markets like New York, where we just launched, or Maine, like it's still growing. So it's better for us to have like a 16-ounce can so people can
Got it.
recognize our brand before
Yeah.
they buy it, you
That
know?
makes sense. Would you say,
Yeah.
and this is just again me not knowing, would you like I know when I drink regular beer, I always think draft beer tastes better than cans. Would you say it's like is it similar or is it different with your guys' product?
Yeah, I love draft. I think a draft is so like fresh and I think that draft is always my favorite, but I think for us we make product. I think with some of the bigger ones with like beer and stuff, they make it in such bulk that, could have been a couple months old, where we're making it so fresh every single month. And since it's cold, it needs to be cold, that we need to sell through exactly what we're producing. So and the benefit is that like you're still getting that fresh kombucha, like no matter what our product is, we sell through it pretty quickly. But we would prefer draft, but it's just hard right now for accounts to commit to half barrels and stuff. Because for example, we sent out a big half barrel order out to California, and then I think in October, and then everything shut down in November, and then they're sitting on
Right.
that.
Yeah, I
So
was gonna say, did it like go to waste or they like bill you guys back for that?
yeah, so we had to do some bill backs and things like that, where if you just commit to the 16-ounce singles, it's 9 to 12 months shelf life, and then you can just like pick that back up when things open up again.
Right, right. I
So
hadn't thought about that. That makes it that's like a new complexity of
yeah,
even using those these days without knowing what the future's gonna look like. That's
yeah.
interesting.
Well, yeah, and I just think it's so interesting because, of course, there's on-premise accounts that are like, we really want to have draft, but I think for us, like if I walk into a bar and I see someone holding like a yellow drink, it's like, what is that? Could be a cider, it could
Sure.
be seltzer. So to have that like packaging recognition right now for us of like, oh, this is a hard kombucha, and it's like, oh, what is hard kombucha? And then you can kind of explain it. And then I think for right now, it's actually a better thing for us to try to push packaging into on-premise over draft until it
Yeah, it's
makes
like
sense.
free marketing, right? I hadn't
Yeah,
thought
free
about that.
marketing.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good
Yeah,
point. Or if you're like at a party or anything, you see just the packaging. That makes a ton of sense.
yeah,
Very
exactly.
interesting. Do you
Mhm.
this is gonna go way back to the beginning, but I wanted to ask this.
Yeah.
I think it's always interesting. Do you you had to like go through so many iterations, I'm sure, up front
Oh
to
yeah.
get to a product that's in a can today. Do you remember the very first batch or the very first run you guys did? I always feel like it's cool to hear
Yeah.
like that very first one that came out and what you guys thought of it.
Yeah. No, it's so funny like to look back, you're moving so fast all the time, and you're constantly putting out fire drills or new things that happen every day, that it's like my dad always reminds me, and my mom, they're just like, take a step back and like take this in. This is exciting times of life of what you guys are doing. And so Yeah, those early days of like, I think, there's so many times in the beginning that you're like, is this even going to work? Like, is this ever, is
Sure.
anyone
Oh
going to
yeah.
believe in you? And like,
Right.
I don't believe it's like, and then you're trying to convince yourself that you believe in you. So when you see it on the shelf for the first time, you're like, wait, what? People are drinking this? Is so cool. But yeah, we were in, it was the summer of 2019 at Pilot Project. And we had our first canning run and it felt like a wedding day or something. It was Claire and I and Mike, and we were just like, I can't even believe it's in a can, and we like, had the first go and we tried it and made sure the ABV was at, that was a huge aspect. Like trying to get the
Yeah.
alcohol to 6%. We're
Is it
like, what
actually
if it's
6%?
12? Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
We're like, that would be interesting. But yeah, it got to 6% and it was a great like first canning run. And then we saw people buy it. I mean, I
Oh,
still,
that's cool.
yeah, like, I was walking on the street on Sunday and there was a woman at a bar and is outside like patio drinking a Luna Bay 16 ounce. And I like, just seeing it and I like stopped her. I was like, what do you think? And she was eating a pretzel. She's like, about my pretzel? I was like, oh no, sorry, about the Luna Bay. And she's like, oh, I love this. I just saw the packaging and I wanted to try it. I was like, oh, it's, I started that.
That's
And
really
so,
cool.
yeah. So stuff like that you just like, there's little moments that you're like, oh, that's really cool.
Right. Yeah. I can't imagine it. I think that would be such a wild thing. I noticed, again, when I saw you guys at Whole Foods, you guys do like, you stand out on the shelf. Like, I feel like just a lot of beer and I would say just the alcohol brands that it seem like they all blend together. There's not very many that do a good job of like really looking differentiated on shelf. So you guys definitely pulled that off. It looks great.
Thank you. Yeah. Taylor's our designer and she is from Chicago and she worked at my last job with me. And so she knew that I wanted it to be like rooted in Chicago, but it has like
Yeah.
a coastal feel to it. I mean, I would pay her in acai bowls and like, whiskey. And I was like, can you just like meet me at this
It's the
place?
essentials.
And, yeah. Like, can we work on this? And we went through, I don't know, probably like 20 different iterations of the cans and just came out with this last one. And I just remember the moment we both were like, this is what we want. This is the
Right.
can. And like the Luna for the feminine energy, the 4 stars for the Chicago flag. And just like, it felt clean and the right move.
Yeah,
So
it's very well thought out. I was gonna say that like the idea behind the name and the cans is it's a good culmination of like what you guys are trying to accomplish, which is really cool.
thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Another one that I have to ask that I think it's this one is interesting for a lot of people and for you guys, especially launching a brand.
Mhm.
What you launched in August of 2018? Is that around there?
2019.
2019. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so yeah, you were not that long before COVID hit. What
Yeah.
I would assume your answer could just be COVID, but what would you say, to anyone listening who's thinking about starting a food or beverage brand, what has been like the biggest, if you had to think of one thing in the history of Luna Bay, like what's been the one major hurdle that you guys had to overcome? And if it's something you don't want to share, that's fine
Yeah.
too. But like, is there something that people could take away from this? That's like, this is a time you like questioned what you were doing or like something that you thought maybe was insurmountable that you guys figured out?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, COVID was a huge, obviously part of that, but yeah. And I think like for us, like we couldn't, so with chains, like they do resets, every few months. And then last year, and that's, you apply, you put in, it's like basically every like Binny's, Whole Foods, or what have you, you apply and you hope they say, okay, we want your SKUs. We'll add you to the system, order it. And with COVID last year, basically all chains stopped doing resets. So
Right.
we had like no way of getting into these sets to sell our product. So I mean, that hurdle in and of itself, like every single no of like, we don't want to change, like, and I feel for them because, they are managing, these buyers are in the stores working
Yeah.
and in the pandemic and they're scared and they're putting their lives on the line and they have, disgruntled people shopping and everyone's walking around in fear and they don't want to change anything. They're just trying to do their job. So for us to go in, try to tell them about a new product, try to get them to change everything that they've done, not be able to do sampling, not be able to try the product, was just I just kept feeling like every door was like shutting for us. And so, yeah, just trying to get really creative with how we could navigate the pandemic and, and also as a young founder of like, how to manage a team going through this too. It's like everyone was going through like a fear of like a parent going through something or a grandparent or, just being scared in general. There's so much political turmoil this year and, just for all of many different things. And it was hard to see the world be in so much pain and, my team manage it. So obviously my number one priority is the people on my team. So it's like sales at the end of the day is great, but this is, they mean the most to me. So really making sure that they felt supported and heard and could, sell and navigate these really hard conversations to help get us through the doors. And I think which was really great was we figured out how to get accepted into all of these stores. Like they added us into their systems, but we weren't mandated. So then it was on us then to go in and be like, hey, we're already in the back end. It's not mandated, but like, can you make it work or just try one SKU? Like that was another thing. Like, just can you try one SKU to start, maybe two to see how it does, and just get as like creative. Be like, we'll buy it all back in a month if it doesn't, move.
Got it. Oh, yeah.
Well, we just got super creative with that. But yeah, I would say last year between every one of us had different stuff going on. I mean, one of our employees, locked at home for the year with her 2 little kids and husband.
Yeah.
And, it's like everyone was going through different things and having different breakdowns each week, running a startup during all this. But I think it, like anything, it doesn't kill you, makes you stronger. And I think we all just have come through this so connected, and really being able to have really hard conversations all the time and being honest with each other. Because, vulnerability is such a key part to, I think, how we've been successful to where we are now.
Got it. Yeah, I know. I keep telling people, I'm like, after all of this, just normal business problems are going to seem like nothing after COVID, right?
Yeah, no. Yeah. And it is like, something one of our advisors says is like, it's like flexing a muscle of like doing something repeatedly. And then it is a muscle, it becomes stronger. And I think in the past, I was much more of a people pleaser and I just want everyone to be happy. And I don't want to have confrontation. And it's made me be like, we don't have time for that. Like we have to have hard conversations. We need to talk to each other all the time. We need to be brutally honest. And I think another part of it was this remote lifestyle of all of us being so remote and feeling very disconnected. We like as Zoom, as much as it's, hard, it's so important. Like we moved all of our calls that used to be on the phone to FaceTime. Like we have to see each other. We have to be in constant communication and,
especially for a small team or like a startup, I can imagine that it was weird going from like a 200 person office to everyone being Zoom. But I would think like it was 5 of us in a small office and now we're all of a sudden we're all on Zoom. How strange that would be.
Oh yeah, totally. It's so strange. Yeah. And it was just really important because I'm like such a more like, oh, I'll text you or I'll just email you. And one of our advisors is like, no, you get on the phone and you get on these FaceTime calls and everyone does them and all of that. So,
right. Yeah. No, it's important. It's been kind of a change in the dynamic. It's going to be interesting to see what all of like food and bev looks like afterwards, like whether people are back in offices, whether there's some flexibility of just being remote most of the time or some of the time. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah. And it was really interesting for us too, because we were thinking about getting a brewery or like an office at one point. We would just meet up at certain places, Lululemon or whatever, to meet. And, we didn't have anything in place yet. So that was actually a really great benefit for us. Like we really were set up for success in the fact of like working remote and not having to be overhead of an office space or a brewery. Like we were really fortunate. I know a lot of breweries suffered with their tap rooms and we didn't have anything like that. So in a lot of ways, we were really set up for success in some of those areas, which I feel really thankful for.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's probably a lot of people on the other side of that have offices and breweries and all that stuff. It's a ton of overhead to carry. So yeah, that's good. Timing's everything sometimes, right?
Yeah, as always, everything.
Yeah, always really. Yeah, exactly. So the last few questions I have are like, I like to ask every single founder that comes on here, because I think it's really interesting. People who are all in the similar industries, like how they respond to these ones. The one that's a fun one, and this can be anything. I always lead with book, but like if there's a podcast or there's something else that like source of knowledge that you would want to use, that's fine too. But really just like, what would be your favorite book that you would recommend the readers check out? or listeners? Sorry.
Yeah. I love like Ego is the Enemy and like the Daily Stoic and
Ryan
any of
Holiday.
those. I know it's kind of like, broad there, but I mean, I read those like, just even an excerpt like before I go to bed, like
Oh,
most.
wow. Okay.
So
He
yeah.
launched he launched a secret book today.
Oh, he
You saw it?
did?
Yeah, he just like came out and posted like I haven't talked about it, but here's a book I just launched. You can go buy it.
Oh, oh my gosh. Yeah. That I love that kind of stuff. And I think for me, I'm always going on like all time zones and all that. So at the end of the night to have like a ritual of something just to like calm my head down of just like
Sure.
whether it's a chapter or two chapters or anything like that has been, he's been a godsend to me this year.
Yeah, same. I love that guy. That's awesome. That's a great one. This one, leading a company, being a founder of a beverage business, I can imagine there's just things in all directions always happening, putting out fires and trying to like grow and scale a business.
Mhm.
What do you use to plan your goals and then like plan your weeks and really like get shit done each day? Is it pen and paper? Do you like apps? Like what are the tools that you put around you to help you like execute?
Yeah, 1,000 things. But yes, I have my notebook all the time.
Okay.
I have like 5 notebooks, but I do something like every day that it's part of my ritual. And I'm also traveling so much that I have to like have some consistency like throughout all of this. So for me in the morning, I always have like I set up my day of like time blocking is really important to me.
Yeah.
I mean, from the littlest thing from like meditate for 5 minutes to whatever it is. But I usually like, work out in the morning, always do my meditation. And then I'll write like 3 things I'm grateful for. There's three ways I want to feel that day, like
Oh,
content and accomplished. So 3 different ways how I want to feel. 3 personal things I need to know, because obviously those are the things that get lost.
yeah.
Like go check your mail, like go do this, like things that I just
Right.
always put off because I put Luna Bay
Things
first.
that always move down the list forever. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Go to the DMV. So like 3 personal things, and then 3 people I'm sending happiness to, and then I
Oh,
write a list of like 10 things that I have to do that day, and then like other things that hopefully I'll get to. But it's just a practice. I listen to different podcasts, and one of the podcasters I listened to, she had mentioned it, and it's now just become something that it takes 5 minutes for me to gather my thoughts, have my coffee, and write those things down. And it's really important to me, and it makes me think for I'm always thinking about Luna Bay or thinking about myself, and it's like, who am I sending happiness to? What am I grateful for? How do I want to feel? And what do I need to do today?
love that. That's great. That's great. Do you when you do the time blocking, and you just do that in your calendar? Do you just like block off time all day for stuff?
Yeah, it's basically like you can't schedule anything within like 2 to 3 weeks because I have like every single thing time blocked.
Yeah.
Yeah, from like workout to personal to therapy
Yeah.
to like literally every single thing, which is, yeah, it's really important and it keeps me sane. And then I also just kind of write it in my notebook for that day too, of like, okay, this is what I'm doing throughout. So
Got it. Yeah. I
yeah,
was like, I've done that before. I always try to stick to it and then I'll bounce away from it, but tend to do that at least in chunks. I find that to be so helpful. Just like no, it's
yeah,
like having an assistant for you almost. You like
yes.
it just like tracks your life and tells you where you need to be and what you need to be doing.
Yeah. And I can look back then too. If I'm like, what was I doing last Thursday? And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, this came up, and I'll update it. If I don't do what the time block was for the day, I'll update it back to what I did do. So I can like reflect back to if I
Oh, that's a
need.
good idea. So you kind of have a place to go back and see what happened.
Yeah. Like I forget things right away. So I'm like,
Right,
did
right.
I do that? And I'm like, oh yeah, I did that last Thursday.
Right. Got it. That's great. The last one and the most important question. How can people follow along with you, with Luna Bay, and how can people get involved and try the product?
Awesome. Yeah. So lunabaybooch.com is our website. At Luna Bay Booch is our Instagram handle. We also have at Luna Bay Booch for TikTok, which I
Nice.
don't know anything about TikTok, but
That's the
the
one you gotta
girls on
get on
my
now.
team, yeah, I think it's really fun for recipes and things like that. LinkedIn, Luna Bay Booch as well. And LinkedIn is a great way to find out new job opportunities. We're hiring for a couple different roles right now. Any like exciting, articles that are happening. We just launched in Mariano's last week, which is
Oh,
a really big
congrats.
deal for us. Yes,
Yeah.
30 stores, and we're the first hard kombucha that they've brought on before, and they're doing like branded Luna Bay sections, and so
Wow. Congratulations. That's
yeah,
awesome.
thank you. Yeah. we just launched in Target. So there's other things that, look out for
Big
updates on
stuff.
our LinkedIn. Professionally, new flavors and things like that. So I would say LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok are all the best ways to find out fun and exciting things. And we have some really cool things coming up in the pipeline for spring. And then March is International Women's Month. So we're doing a lot of different fun things with like the Chicago community, highlighting other women-run brands and businesses.
Awesome.
It's pretty rare to find a founded women's team in the alcohol space.
I'm
And
sure.
it's really
Yeah.
exciting to be paving the way for that.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, very good. And I'll make sure I link all that stuff to the show notes and share it out. And we'll get people trying Luna Bay.
I would love that. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, Bridget, thank you so much for coming on. It was a pleasure getting to talk to you. And
You
thank you for
too.
your time.
Thank you so much, Shane. I hope you have a
Awesome.
great day.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay,
All
bye.
right, see ya.